I now call the Powhatan County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Mr. Smither, if you could let people know how to attend remotely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During the public comment period, if you wish to speak from home, you can use Zoom to raise your hand, or if you want to call in, simply press *9 on your phone and we'll be glad to pick it up. Thank you.
A few introductions. To my far left is Mr. David Williams, representing District 1. Next to him is Mr. Tom Berry, representing District 2. Immediately next to him is Mr. Ned Smither, our county administrator, myself, Karen Carmack, representing District 5. To my immediate right, Mr. Mike Byerly, representing District 3. Next to him, Mr. Bill Cox, representing District 4. And last, Mr. Tom Latchney, our county attorney. If you could please stand, Mr. Berry, if you could lead us in the pledge, and Mr. Williams, if you could do the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, thank you for another beautiful day in Powhatan County and for all the blessings we enjoy. Amen.
Any requests to postpone or amend the agenda?
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second? Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. County Administrator updates?
No updates tonight, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to our first public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name and full address for the record. If you're speaking as an individual, you have 3 minutes, or 5 minutes if you're speaking for a group. Anybody on Zoom? Sorry.
Zoom is clear.
Zoom is
Thank
clear. Okay, seeing no one here, I will close the public comment period. Moving on, we have the consent agenda that I believe we need to approve.
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Tonight for the consent agenda, we do need to do a roll call. Mr. Smither, if you could do that.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Berry.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Barley.
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye. All right, approved. And now appointments to boards, commissions, and committees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask Mrs. Chardon if you can join us and go over the appointments for us.
Yeah, the first one we have tonight is for CPMT. Besides board member and other representatives, there's a specific parent representative that serves on that. So a vacancy had opened up, and we do have from that group a suggestion in here. I believe Ms. James. That was the only applicant or suggested person we have for that.
Okay, that is my district. I move that we approve Ms. Kathy James to the CPMT.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, and then EDA, we have 2 existing seats that have come up for reappointment. As you recall, we were previously a 7-member board, and we had let a few of the vacancies remain open while we worked with the General Assembly to reduce our membership to 5. Other localities have done that. It's just easier to find 5 people than it is to find 7, and that matches with the size of membership for BZA, Planning Commission Board, most of the other boards here. So this is the first set of appointments under that new 5-member size. So we have several applications, including the 2 incumbent members.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes,
we have
sir.
5 applications for 2 slots.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, if I'll be bold, I'm gonna go ahead and recommend that we reappoint Matt Schaefer for District 5. Do I have a second? Anyone?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Does anybody else have
Madam
a?
Chair.
Yes, sir.
The other one that is up for renewal, I guess, is from District 3. And we did have some really good applicants, without any doubt. I'd like to recommend Mr. Frank Rennie IV for this position. Mr. Rennie is he's an attorney in Richmond with McCowan Gates. law firm. He's a U.S. Naval Academy graduate. He had 39 years service as a reservist with the Navy Academy or with the Navy. He is he's an attorney, county attorney in Lunenburg County. He works as general counsel for Southside Electric. He also represents the Planning Commission in Lunenburg County. He's been in Powhatan County since 2015. He has a wife named Priscilla who's very active in the community through the Chamber of Commerce and through PLI. He's on the council for the Goochland Board of Zoning Appeals. He is also on the Fork Union Military Academy Board of Trustees. I would like to offer Mr. Rennie up to represent the EDA from District 3 to replace the person who's there in District 3 now, from District 3 now.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chardine, I don't have any problems with Mr. Rennie, but these appointments are not by district, is that correct?
Not district specific, no. At times we've had multiple people from one and others.
I second.
Okay.
I second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Looking forward, it looks like we have one appointment to the library board next month, correct, sir?
Not until the end of November, so we have a bit of a break in appointments.
Oh, wow. Okay, sounds good. All right, moving on to old business.
Items both A and B, staff and the applicant are requesting deferral. Continuing to work with the applicant, made some good progress on addressing some of the concerns and questions of the board, as well as some of the adjacent property owners. And we do have an access management waiver request that's going to the Planning Commission in July. So we would propose to put this on your July agenda when we can bring you the complete package with the Planning Commission's recommendation related to the access management waiver.
Okay, do we need to vote on the applicant's deferral?
Yeah, you still need a
Oh, okay.
motion and a.
All right.
vote.
There are two of them.
But you can kick them
Correct.
together.
We can do it together?
Defer both matters
All right. I move we defer both matters for the CUP and rezoning
to the July meeting.
to our July regular board
Right.
meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries.
You just might want to note, in case anybody, I don't see anybody here, but if anybody's listening at home, we'll have the public hearing on the
Cool.
one at that next
Yeah,
meeting. So,
exactly. We will have the public hearing on the conditional use permit at the July meeting. Okay. Moving on, discussions for alternative uses for courthouse parking.
Yes, Madam Chair. At previous board meetings, the board has asked us, as you know, on the parking lot for this project, we have borrowed funds in advance of the project. And we're now looking for alternative uses for the approximately $385,000 that is now available for if we do not move forward with that particular project. And I wanted to share the screen with you tonight to show a list of projects that, and I'll make it, if you're like me, you like to see the bigger font, but in general, these projects are projects that you just got through going through on your CIP that were in excess of $300,000. And what I did, these are pay-go projects that you've already approved in your CIP that you simply could take that $385,000 and say, instead of paying cash for any of these projects, I'll pick one, roof replacements. We could turn around and say, we're not going to put general fund pay-go cash into roof replacements. We'll just substitute in the $385,000. So any of these uses we could reallocate and save this general fund money from going to the capital improvement fund. So that would be alternative number one. We got admin vehicles, fire and rescue apparatus, softball complex concession, the parking at the Pocahontas Landmark Facility, the lighting at the athletic fields, our LMR mobile radio, roof replacement projects that we have planned for the county, and school bus purchases. All of them would be another source for this funds. Part of what I wanted to give you is some other projects that, by the nature of these projects, the fact that we didn't talk about them in our 10-year CIP, they are items that are outside of what we discussed, got through discussing in the budget process. But one of a list of about 6 projects here for your consideration. We did talk about a small parking lot facility in the back of the same complex. Let me share that with you too, if you don't mind. See, here, stop share.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Smither, we've already rejected paving the existing gravel parking lot. Why is it on there?
You did reject the mega project, which is the
He
one in
speaks
red
a
here.
littler one.
No, but then we were asked, well, what about just doing that? And we rejected that too.
I don't remember that. Okay.
We reject that?
Yes.
My understanding of the courthouse parking, 21,000, we approved that.
I thought we did.
Okay,
approve
that's
that
a
one.
that's a small one.
That's the
but
small one, right?
Go back up and put that list up again.
Yeah, okay. The list, here's the, let me see if I can get 1 second.
Well, so it's up there on, it's one of the things to be
To
considered.
consider.
B is paving existing gravel lots, sheriff's parking. We did reject that.
This number B is a alternative paving of just a gravel portion of that lot.
We rejected that.
No, I think what he's saying is
Right.
just that, not expanding it.
Right.
And doing the whole
No,
thing.
but we talked about that. Mrs. Carter kept coming back with things she wanted to pave. And we said we would do the little bitty lot, okay, inside the courthouse, and that's it. We would look at what VDOT would do for us, okay?
They're not
out
gonna
on the
do
street.
anything.
Okay, but
got
that
that.
was,
If you took this, and the reason I put it on the list, if you decide you want to go in that direction, it sounds like Mr. Cox, you're
it just
You're not
won't, it just won't, it just won't erase itself. It just keeps coming back.
right. That project, the gravel 35 spots that you're seeing, and no, you're not seeing. The gravel 35 spots that you're seeing here in the red box, just not the entire grassy area, but
Right.
just.
I
the 35
understand that.
spot
And
Is a $56,000 project. So that was an option.
So Just do that.
it keeps coming back and it
Bounce it
keeps
back.
getting rejected.
Fair enough.
Well, hold on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna hold on too on that
hold
one.
on.
Can you put the
Mhm.
slide back?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Like, I need a clicker. So the gravel part without the expansion was 558,000. That's when we're going all the way over to our neighbor's parking lot there and everything that's in that red box. But if we do paving for just what's gravelled there right now, how much is that?
We're estimating 56,000 for 35 spots.
For 35 spots.
Maybe I just wasn't in the same meeting. I don't remember hearing 56,000.
We didn't have a number.
No.
There wasn't a number. at that.
And Ms. Carter can correct me if I'm wrong, but
So we said no and didn't know a number?
at the time we talked
Is
about,
that what we did? We said no and didn't even know the number?
Correct.
Oh, I'd like to revisit that one then,
It's a
it's
question of
56,000.
why in the world do we want to spend money on that gravel?
right? I know what you're saying, Mr.
Okay.
Cox. I know exactly what you're saying.
So-
But we can go through 50, is that the number 56,000? 56,000
that's-
and we take care of that. Maybe Ms. Carter needs to come up to the,
Well, that means 200, we don't have.
Come on, Ramona, you didn't think
285,000.
you'd get by unscathed tonight.
if we pave that, and I like the idea of paving it, trust me, but the thing that when I look at asphalt and we start paving that section for 56,000, aren't we going to create a erosion sediment issue with runoff by paving that 35 spaces there? That creates a bigger problem?
No, according to DCR, that is already impermeable area. So it doesn't play in when we put asphalt paving on top of it. It doesn't increase and make us so that we have to have stormwater regulations or stormwater mitigation.
Madam Chair, the problem with that is it's going to create the velocity of water going across there will be much faster than it is going across gravel. I live it every day.
Would that increase the number of parking spaces in your opinion, if we pave it?
Well, there's 35 spots there right now,
Correct.
but it's not striped and it's not marked.
How many typically cars do you think you can get in there? Because people never park right when you're,
Yeah, we get anywhere from 18 to 22, somewhere around there that park because they space themselves out
right.
further.
Okay.
So if you stripe, you're going to get more parking. But you're also going to, I sort of agree with Mr. Cox. there's gonna be a water problem there. Now, you can direct the water based upon how you lay the asphalt to some place, but I don't know where that place would be. That would be, you know, I mean, if I listen to DCR, it's impermeable.
It would likely drain back towards
I'm kind of
13.
familiar with, you know, at least a 75 by 100 piece of asphalt down on Anderson Highway. I know what the water does. It runs off pretty fast. Don't disagree with Mr. Cox on that, but I don't know that, I would say no at this point. I need to know a little more about that.
Mr. Williams, do you have a comment? You look like
More
you're
of
ready
a
to-
question. Do we have those cement headstones or whatever you call them where you define the parking spaces over there now?
Like curbing,
Yeah. the
portable
curb-
curbing.
Yeah, whatever it is, where you pull up to that in the front. Do we have that now?
I think we only have it along the street.
Street. Yeah, I think Mr. Cox is right.
Okay, so I mean, you could, where I was going with this, you know, other than striping, that would be another way to get to your 35 parking places.
So we have $285,000.
385.
385,000, okay, that, what do we're going, we agreed that we're going to pave inside the courthouse.
Correct.
That's 27,000?
25, I think is the
25.
latest number.
Okay, so we don't have 385.
Right.
Okay. And so rather than putting it towards some other program, which we approved and like, we want to pave the gravel.
No, sir. We're just trying to give you a good menu of
I mean,
options. so.
it would look nicer, in my opinion. I mean, it would make the area look nicer.
And it will help us with maintenance as well, snow
Yeah,
removal.
I mean, so I'm not complete, I'm kind of with Mr. Byerly. I'm not a complete no on that as far as if we can do, you know, a little something to improve the aesthetics and increase the parking. And I understand you two, you know, are insistent that it's different than the gravel, but she's the engineer and she says that the water runoff's going to be the same. I don't know who to believe. I mean, kind of going to go with her.
Pour water on this hard table and check it out.
But, you know, so I would not be opposed to paving that to the tune of 50-some thousand.
I would rather see the 50,000 go to some of our pay-go projects. We've got plenty of things that make
We
a
do.
lot of sense.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
let me ask Mr. Smither a question. Mr. Smither, you're, you know, working every day in the operations of this county, running things. Is there something out there that we need to do now that will save us money later? I'll use an example of roofs. You know, if you got a leaking roof, you know you're doing damage.
Right.
Something's happening to that building. If you had to prioritize things that we need to do now to save money later, what would be your ranking of the list of things that you've given us?
Well, you've already taken, Mr. Williams, you really took care of that when you addressed your CIP in this past budget session. You took a 10-year view of, and we estimated roof repairs for all your buildings. So we've already tried to get ahead of that for you. So the CIP that you adopted already, we hope we've knocked out all of the long-term impact that we could have structure-wise by a structured plan review. So,
Okay, but let me go to short-term then. Okay, you got short-term roofs up there as one of the options?
it is.
Okay.
And part of it, we got 350,000 in the fiscal year 22.
That's
just
what I'm
for the-
asking.
yeah.
You know, it didn't make it over to the capital improvement plan. I'm guessing maybe it's because of the amount of money. I don't know.
No, it's in there.
Okay,
It's
so
in there.
that's in there.
It's in there, and you're,
Okay, so you're saying we take it off as a pay. You know,
we pay as a pay go, and we use the
Gotcha.
bond money to pay for
I
it.
got
And
you.
all of these projects that you see on that list there are literally just take it off of the pay go and put it and use the bond proceeds that we borrowed, 385,000 towards any of these projects.
Okay, so then if you go through, you know, where it is and what year of the capital improvement plan, that indicates some priority in terms of how soon you address the project.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what are the things out there that you've shown us that we have in the capital improvement plans? They're out there, pay as you go in year 1, 2, or 3. You can start with year 1, because that was supposedly, I guess, a priority.
It was. And
Okay.
this was, I think Ms. Carter's staff went through and identified certain buildings and certain roofs, so when we came up with $350,000 in year one, there's a vision for exactly what roofs will be attacked in year one, and then year two probably has a totally different set of buildings.
Because, don't trust me to remember every project that's in the CIP by fiscal year. That's not going to happen.
Right.
So that was the reason I was asking the question tonight. If you could help me along with that, that would give me some sense of urgency about where we need to, focus our resources.
And we've also, in addition to the roof repairs, you got 10-year vision of what we think it's going to take care of your HVAC needs for all your buildings. And they're scheduled out over 10-year periods.
Again, I'm looking for things that are out there in year one that Nia said, this is a priority. We need to address this in year one.
For tonight, could we, you think, put a stake in the ground one way or the other with the paving altogether? And for instance, we know we want to do behind the courthouse, and let's make a decision if we want to do the 55,000 or whatever it was for the little lot over there for the sheriff's lot. I mean, I think it would just, that way we have some closure to this, and they can go ahead and get a bid or do something with it. And we've been talking about this for months. Let's decide.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
this is bond money,
Mm-hmm.
so we have plenty of bonded projects it can go to that are part of PAYGO, which will release $350,000.
Excuse me 1 second, Mr. Cox. Ms. Carter, I think the 385 includes the $25,000, or is it before we get to 25?
It's before we. get
Okay,
to
thank you. You're right.
Okay, so we're looking for a good use for that. That's better than paving that parking lot. We just heard one. Let's buy a transitional house. Take that $385,000 for the social services and let's use that to buy them another transitional house, which they dearly need.
They do.
If we go in that direction, it'd be great to take some kind of action, Mr. Latchney. What could we do that would allow us to move quickly when this items pop on the market so quickly now that we don't move in a day, we're gonna miss the opportunity. So what can the board do to move quickly if they wanted to go in that direction?
You just make a motion to authorize the funds and appropriate the money, which then would allow a cash offer to be made. And you could use the appropriation resolution as a support for the cash offer. So I mean, that's how you buy a house in the county right now, is a cash offer.
And we don't have to spend it all. I mean,
Correct. I was going to say, you may not spend all that. Yeah, definitely not. I think the last one was, I forgot how
well,
much.
market's changed a bit, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if you're saying, Mr. Cox, that you want to set up a fund for transitional housing, that we would put the money in this fund like we've done for transportation, broadband, and some other things.
You got to park it somewhere. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, why would you have to park it? It's
Well, let
bonded, you
me-
have
let-
it, right?
let me finish, please. If you do that, that allows us time to continue the discussion with social services as how we want to bring about transitional housing, because prior to this meeting, this was the first discussion I've had. Okay, so for me to go out there and go and buy a house, I'm not there yet, okay? I'm not doing that. Now, if you want to set up, move the money over to a fund, and then we continue our discussion on how we work with social services to provide, transitional housing, I'll consider that.
The reason I brought this up is I just thought this would be a better use for the money. Okay, we were looking for something that we otherwise weren't doing.
Mhm.
And this is, Mr. Williams has done a better job of explaining than I do. This is a potential significant need where we could make a real difference. So,
Madam Chair, if I may,
Mhm.
I think what you're trying to do is get closure on the park.
I want to get closure on the parking lot. Whatever we do, let's leave here tonight so we can tell them one way or the other
Because
about the parking lot.
we've been at this for how
for
many meetings?
months.
So
Yes.
I applaud you on that effort.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Here's what I would at least throw out to everybody. If we do the parking lot, both parking lots, it's settled. And you know, I'm gonna, you know me, I just put it out there, so here we go. We sit up here and we're very concerned about how things look on Route 60. Aesthetic, appealing, looking through that mirror, right, or through that front windshield. What's it look like? Well, what's it look like when you drive through Powhatan County and there's a gravel lot? And you're going to a restaurant, and you're coming to the courthouse. What's that look like? Me personally, I think that we could probably do 55,000. And at the same time, I like Mr. Cox's suggestion of the housing, and I'll follow up. I like Mr. Williams's suggestion. Let's put the money in a fund. Let's wait a little while, investigate it a little bit further, and then we can figure out when this housing market's going to go down.
Are you making that as a motion, Mr. Wiley?
I'm making that as a prediction. The housing market's going to go down.
Well, if you only had that kind of control.
I know. Yeah, I'll make that as a motion that we do both parking lots at 22 and 55, and the remaining balance gets put in a fund directed towards the purchase of transitional housing for the Department of Social Services in Powhatan County.
I'll second that.
Could I ask one question, Madam Chair?
Yeah, any
Ms.
questions or comments? Yep.
Okay. Mrs. Carter, if we pave that, we have fixed all of the septic tank problems, all of the stuff that's there. We have no barriers to us paving that.
We actually already removed 2 fuel tanks that were underneath that funds.
I'm sorry.
We removed 2 fuel tanks that were buried in there.
Okay,
So there is nothing underneath there now.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Well, that was successful. Okay, moving on, new business.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chardon, if you don't mind, if you could come up for the first item, first ordinance.
We need to
Public
do the, we're doing the police towers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I've got that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff has been in discussion with Verizon for many months, discussing Verizon becoming an ongoing tenant for a Cook Road tower. Many thanks to Tom Latchney and Tom Nolan for their efforts to negotiate this lease with an assist from John Wood along the way. The lease allows Verizon to provide much needed cellular coverage to the area surrounding the tower at an annual rental rate of $21,600. Cell coverage in this area has needed a boost for a long time, and we are excited about the new tenant and improved coverage to come. Terrain makes it very difficult to predict which households will receive improved cell coverage. And Verizon tries to not predict that house by house, but we know coverage will be improved. The attached map I thought might be helpful for you, and I'll share that with you. Okay. As you know, we've got towers throughout the county located, and the one we're talking about right now is a Cook Road Tower in the southwest corner. I've got that circled in red. We know where that's at. That is an underserved cellular area for us. We now have addressed all the emergency communication needs with that tower. We have taken a 2-mile radius of the tower and are showing it here on this map. In general, interior reception in this 2-mile circle should be greatly improved. But Verizon can't guarantee that. Obviously, terrain makes a difference, but in general, this is a 2-mile circle around the tower. If I blow that up, you can see some of the streets that are around that as far as getting a better feel for where we are in the county. But in general, you can see the households that are impacted by this Verizon lease, and we're excited that the coverage will be improved throughout this area, and probably a wider band than just 2 miles. So with that in mind, this resolution gives the county administrator at least a chance to execute a lease that's been reviewed by your county attorney.
Is there a resolution on this, or do we just authorize you? I'm sorry, I don't see a page. No.
It's a page. No, there's
There's nothing in the packet
It's
on
just an
Okay, I didn't
authorization.
think so.
Motion to authorize him to
Okay.
execute the lease.
I move we authorize Mr. Smither to execute this lease. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. This is very good news for people over off Cook Road.
It
Very,
is.
very good news.
All right, next item, staff, we've received some complaints over the years and more recently from citizens concerned about the operation of primarily daily rentals of homes, or typically referred to as Airbnb. Recently, in trying to enforce some of those, we found there's essentially kind of a hole in our ordinance. We define and permit and address daily rental of homes. And while we could probably update that a little bit, this ordinance was written before really Airbnb took off. That's generally okay. We don't address yearly and monthly rental, but that's so clearly customary, that you can do yearly leases and things of homes. And there's probably some state or federal law that preempt that protect that. But really what we've found is our ordinance does not define or address weekly rental of homes. And that's something that's much more typically associated with transient recreational Airbnb type use. So we would propose that the board, if you like, and I think staff would support this, initiate a code amendment for us to kind of close that loophole and just clean this up generally. So if so, we can take that to the planning commission. This is in the zoning ordinance, so we'd require a planning commission to work on it. If you have any general guidance, things you might like us to consider, otherwise we'll work with them and kind of come up with the best practices, best recommendations, and bring that back to you likely in August.
Do you all have any comments or guide direction for Mr. Chardine?
I've got a question, Madam Chair.
Sir.
What's the possibility if we're talking about Airbnbs or anything that's an overnight stay? What type of revenue does the county receive from those now?
We do when we're aware of them, or when the Commissioner of Revenue is aware of them. I do believe we send notice that they have to file and pay the lodging tax for the county. So there is, for those that comply, there is some revenue. I don't know offhand how much. I know most of that is coming from the larger volume from the mill at Fine Creek, Independence. I think Foundry have some rooms. The individual homes are probably a much lesser extent. Could try and get that information from you to see what the actual amount is, but yeah, we can collect revenue on some of them.
If we're aware of it.
Correct.
So I hope
Yeah.
they're honest, right?
Yeah, and it can be difficult because if you look at Airbnb, again, they're not the only model out there, but they're the main one. They don't publish the actual address unless you reserve the home. So
Right.
we're a large enough and sparsely enough populated population county that sometimes you can drill down and look and you can pretty much figure out which property that is, but it can be difficult to determine exactly who it is.
So if I go out and Google a place to stay for a couple of nights in Powhatan County, I might find some people out there on some different sites who's renting out more than 3 rooms of their home or has an Airbnb.
Yeah,
Right.
you certainly will. And many of those, are rightfully permitted.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
that's why I was going to ask Brett to point out, in certain districts, they're permitted. And so
Mhm,
if you
yeah.
do go out there, as Mr. Byler said, and you were interested in a Airbnb situation in Powhatan County, you would bring up places in Powhatan County.
Mhm.
The concern, Mr. Byerly, that I'm receiving in my district is this is in residential neighborhoods. It's not in A10. These are in high-density residential neighborhoods where people are coming in, buying homes, whatever, renting them out for weekends. And imagine if you're in that neighborhood, you wouldn't appreciate that coming in to your high-density residential neighborhood in the current. Now, at other places, A10 is perfectly appropriate.
Mhm, yep.
And we're doing that today, but not in the high-density residential
Correct,
neighborhoods.
yeah. And another thing, our ordinance does not differentiate between owner occupied and non-owner occupied. So I think if you live in the house and you're doing kind of bed and breakfast thing, I think that's different than if you buy a property, you don't live there. Some of these, many Airbnbs, the person doesn't live in the state or even in the country. It's an investment opportunity. and they're renting it out, that's a little different. So that's something else. You don't need to necessarily get into all the details tonight. We'll work on planning commission with that, but owner occupied versus non owner occupied would be the type of thing we would suggest we add to the ordinance that is currently lacking.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, one other thing, just for everybody's radar, a couple years ago, I think it was, a state made a deal with Airbnb. We can opt into that where they'll pay us the taxes that they say are allocatable to Powhatan. So it is something we can look into.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then there are a few localities doing that. A lot of localities aren't because they don't trust Airbnb. They don't trust the company to be, but those are larger localities that feel like they can generate more revenue by tracking this themselves. I don't know that we're going to be a hotbed of Airbnb rentals, so it may be worthwhile pursuing what we need to do to have Airbnb collect and remit taxes to us for their rentals.
I don't mind, excuse me, Madam Chair, I'm sorry. We have Airbnbs today. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, this is a question about location.
Yeah, I'm only talking about taxation, not location. I'm only
Okay.
talking about the taxability of it.
Okay, so just the time, okay.
I'm only talking about taxes.
Right, so I don't have any problem as long as we,
Madam
our
Chair.
location.
Madam Chair, Mr. Lackney, if we enter into an agreement with Airbnb, does that in any way restrict our ability
Mhm.
to deal with location?
No, the agreement with Airbnb is strictly a transient occupancy tax collection issue. That's where they made the agreement with the state, is on collecting transient occupancy taxes. So there's nothing to do with zoning or right to use your home.
Thank you.
Okay.
Be just like any retail business collecting a tax.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Chardine. Next up,
You need a motion and a vote.
do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, if you're going to send it, because it's a request to initiate a zoning ordinance text, you're asking the planning
Okay.
commission to do something.
No worries. I move that we initiate the planning commission to review a zoning ordinance text amendment to address short-term rentals.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Next one is zoning ordinance text amendment. So this relates to smaller batch artisan food and beverage production. So we've had a number of companies smaller startups in the county interested in doing this, pursuing this. Currently, you can do it as a home occupation, but once you outgrow that and want to go to the next step, our ordinance does not differentiate anything smaller than large scale food production. So if you're doing some baking or something like that in your home, and then you want to grow a little bit more, the next jump would you need full industrial scale zoning and property, which is not where most of these people are looking to be. So we're proposing to add a new use, define it and permit it in a number of districts, as well as adopt some use standards and parking requirements to go with it. So this would be similar to what we've done in the past with the microbrewery, as well as the micro distilleries, where again, kind of filling the gap between a small home-based business versus a full large-scale production industrial operation. Planning Commission reviewed this, unanimously recommended approval. I believe there was one person who spoke in favor of it. And I don't think we've gotten any other public comment on this since. So staff is also recommending approval.
Okay, this is actually requires a public hearing for this ordinance amendment. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name and full address for the record. No one here. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
Zoom is clear.
Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Now, do you all have any discussion?
I have some questions about that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sheridan, let's go to page 51, which is the definition. And I guess that's where I'm getting confused. You use the term small and it's used small scale in here. So, and then we have, as part of the use standards, to keep it small, we have caps on the amount of square footage you can use. Why, I don't understand why we need caps, okay? Because they're growing, okay? What does this do that a larger, I mean, why wouldn't we want a person to grow? I mean, why would we want to stop? What's the, is it niche or is it just tiny, or help me with the small scale piece? I just don't understand that.
Yeah, it would be, the interest we've gotten would be niche. So this would fit within those. And that's, if somebody were going, let's say they were in the light industrial, heavy industrial, some of those areas, then no, we don't really care how big they are, but there's other uses already defined in those districts that would accommodate them, so they could grow, as much as they want there. The limits would really be more to apply if somebody's doing it in, say, Crossroads or a village center, like that would be, say, Winterfield Section 2, where we don't want, you want it to be something small, maybe a little retail storefront, but not a bigger production, where let's say 10,000 square foot of baking in Winterfield Section 2, for example, would be a bit large and out of scale with that. So it's to try and keep it in harmony with that.
I understand Crossroads, okay, but we've also got industrial in here,
Mhm.
okay? So if a new Sabra wanted to make hummus in Powhatan,
Yeah.
what would they fall under?
So they would fall under the large scale production, which is already in the ordinance.
Okay, and the large scale production prohibits small scale production?
It does not. So the issue is not in our industrial districts. Those already accommodate large on down. It's where we don't have that large scale use in Crossroad, DC, CC, Courthouse, those areas. So that's really what this is intended to help. And then we just put it in the other districts. So if somebody wanted to do it in light industrial, heavy industrial, there'd be no question of whether it's permitted or not.
Okay, so with that, why do we need this? Why do we need light industrial and heavy industrial in this? They're already taken care of.
Yeah, we could leave it out.
No, I'm just, if it needs to be in there, I just,
Yeah, I don't think it has to be. Generally, we
well,
would.
you're talking about smaller footprints and places where that would be appropriate.
Yeah, it wouldn't, I don't think it would hurt. We typically, if the zoning is kind of a pyramid, we'll put it in the higher class, whatever the use is, heavy industrial, and then fall it down and then take it out of the lighter districts like residential ag. So typically we would put something in all more intense zoning districts.
Let me ask the last question. It says the use shall have an accessory retail and or office use. What if they just want to run a wholesale operation? Why do they have to have?
Yeah, that one, that we, I think, wanted to make it, again, not just about the wholesale production, but something more, again, where there'd be people coming, more community oriented, not just, more industrial, which would be for wholesale. I don't know that we feel that strongly about that piece, but we wanted something where there would be the owner on site, a smaller, feel like that.
Do you want to eliminate the office componentry and make it a little more comprehensive?
I would rather it say may rather than shall.
I'm fine with that. Or do you all have any problems with that?
But we're talking about
Opens it
smaller
up a
business,
little more.
smaller businesses who may have different models. I don't know.
Yeah, I think with the square footage caps we have, I think that would be appropriate. If somebody wants to do 3,500 square feet of just purely production without it, I don't think I have any concern about that.
Okay, make that change if everyone's okay with that. Does anyone want to make a motion? You want me to make the motion?
I'll make the motion. Get ready to say something.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, as amended,
As amended.
What are the amendments that we've made?
shall to may,
Okay, that's the only one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
correct?
Yep.
Mhm. All right, and this is for ordinance 2021-3-13. Do I have a second? Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
You have to roll.
Roll call. All right, sorry about that.
No
Got a little excited.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Barry,
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly,
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's their second public hearing tonight is ordinance 2021-14. The County of Powhatan requests an amendment to the County Code of Ordinances to add provisions to Chapter 46, Fire Prevention and Protection, to remove certain restrictions on open flame cooking devices. Chief Warner's here with us tonight to help us guide us through the introduction of this ordinance.
Good evening, Board. How are y'all tonight?
good evening.
This really just, what we're looking at is to affect the multifamily dwellings that are coming to Powhatan, specifically the artistry apartments that has kind of brought this to light. is the current code has, we cannot have charcoal burners. Open flame cooking devices shall not be on balconies or within 10 feet of multifamily structures or a single family or two families. But the exceptions are buildings with balconies and decks protected by an automatic sprinkler. We want to eliminate that. It doesn't affect any building in Powhatan currently. We're just looking at towards the future. And then number 3, which we want to eliminate, is LP gas cooking devices with either small container of 2.5 gallons. We just basically on any multifamily dwelling, we want to have no cooking and open flames on decks and balconies. And our neighbors to the north, Goochland, and our neighbors to the east in Chesterfield have removed those exemptions from their code as well. We're just following suit. And right now it has no effect on any of our current apartments or multifamily dwellings. The Artistry Apartments down at Winterfield, they have a policy currently where they have absolutely no cooking on balconies. So it doesn't even affect the residents there. It just kind of cleans it up and makes our residents safe in those multifamily dwellings. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay,
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
I need to have a public hearing on this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. We'll now have the public hearing on this amendment. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name and address. Anybody on Zoom?
Zoom is clear.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Mr.
Madam Chair, I'll
Williams?
make the motion again to approve ordinance O-2021-14.
Second.
All right, roll call.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Barry.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye.
Madam Chair, thank members of the board. The staff has been, let me see, as you remember, part of the approved FY22 operating budget, the Board of Supervisors created a new real estate assessment office that will be charged with preparing the annual real estate assessment for future calendar years, beginning calendar year 22 for the valuation due January 1, 23. As a result, our county code needs updating to reflect the new responsibilities of the assessment office. Tonight, we have 2 related public hearings. They are ordinance O-2021-15 to create Department of Real Estate Assessment and ordinance O-2021-16 to assign responsibilities to that department. With that information, Madam Chair, we can proceed to the first public hearing, O-2021-15.
All right, we'll now have the public hearing on this ordinance amendment. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name and address. Anybody on Zoom?
Zoom is clear.
All right, seeing no one, we'll close this public hearing. And we will, I think, should we do them both or should we vote on that one and then? Okay, let's vote on this one first. Do you guys have any discussion on this? All right,
I'm sorry. Mr. Smith and I had a conversation today. There was some discussion of deleting
Page
on 70-37 on,
page 60.
yeah, on the last sentence, the Board of Supervisors may fix the amount of the county assessor's compensation and determine the amount of compensation of the county assessor's assistants and staff. We don't do that with any other county employees.
Okay.
You'd like to turn may to shall?
Or just eliminate the last sentence altogether.
Just eliminate.
The
So
other
there was
alternative.
discussion of eliminating that last sentence, if the
Right.
sentence, if that's acceptable to the board.
What page?
Page 60.
Page 60.
It's 70-37 is the code
39.
section.
oh, okay, I was, all right, got it.
Last sentence,
Last
that paragraph.
Last
There
sentence.
we go.
Board of Supervisors may fix the amount.
Okay,
Thank you.
I move we approve O-2021-15 as amended.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Mr. Smither, roll call.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Barry.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye. All right, next, we will have the public hearing on ordinance amendment 2021-16 to assign responsibilities to the Department of Real Estate Assessments and the Chief Assessor. Anyone care to speak on this? Zoom clear?
Zoom is clear.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. Any amendments or anything on this discussion? If-
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And this is to Mr. Lackney. The on page 66, you have section 70-78 criteria for special assessment. This is where land use taxation comes in. It says that the assessor will do this. AFD need to be included in here anywhere?
No, we don't, I mean, AFDs are their own kind of hybrid animal where you have that AFD committee and the board.
No, but currently, tax,
Is land use taxation, right?
no, but it's done, it's not done by the county.
Well, it is done by the county, creates the districts and then reviews them
But
periodically.
the actual rollback, collection, when it starts, is done by Mr. Timberlake.
That's what we did by default because he was handling all land use.
So no, I understand that, but I'm just trying to, does it need any clarity that says we do that?
No, once we handle land use, that's technically an extension of land use.
Thank you.
I move we approve O-2021-16.
Yes.
All
I'll
right.
second it.
All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Barry.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye. I think you're back up, Brett.
All right, this is a ordinance amendment, not a zoning ordinance amendment, but amendment to county code, following up on what we had talked about at the previous meeting about strengthening our inoperable vehicle ordinance. So currently, the ordinance allows tarps to be used to count as a cover for the purpose of screening them. So this amendment would, one, change that, not allow tarps, but require a form-fitting, purpose-made automotive cover in good condition for the purpose of screening. And then also currently our ordinance allows up to 9 inoperable vehicles in agriculturally zoned properties, and up to 5 of them could be visible from the roadway or neighboring properties. As we've talked about, many of our agriculturally zoned properties in the county are actually used residentially, and they're smaller lots. Sometimes they're not all 100 acres where you can hide cars without them being visible and an eyesore to traffic and the neighbors. So this would reduce that. It would keep it as 9 in agricultural, but you could only have 1 of them visible and under a form-fitting cover. So that would allow us to enforce some of these ones that have been difficult in the past, where they're getting numerous complaints on them. Doesn't look right to people, but there's nothing we can do given the current ordinance. I've not had any comments from the public on this so far.
Okay, we'll have the public hearing on this first. Anyone wishing to speak on this ordinance amendment, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. No one on Zoom?
Zoom is clear.
Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Discussion? Y'all have any
Madam
questions?
Chair,
Yes, sir.
question.
Okay.
So we're going to change how we're handling inoperable cars. How do we get this out? Since we've got some folks out there who will be in violation, how do we let folks know that there's been a change and somebody may come to see you?
We may not want to. Currently, it's primarily complaint based. So, if somebody has a complaint, now we have a better tool to address that. We're assuming you approve this. We have a better tool to address that. We try to work with the person. Typically we'll send a courtesy notice first because they may have no idea that such a regulation exists. So we, try to not go in too heavy handed initially and work with them and give them an opportunity and resources to clean it up. If they don't, then we can use this ordinance. But I would think if we try to advertise it too much, then we're probably going to have a lot of people that otherwise may not have cared complaining, and we don't have a full-time staff dedicated to this.
No clunker police.
All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
just to make sure I understand, if you're in A10, you can have 9 inoperable vehicles on your property, but only 1 can be visible.
Correct.
From where?
From either a roadway or a neighboring property line.
Okay, so if anyone can see it from the road or a neighbor can see it, at that point, they have the right to file the complaint. And then we'll take our task force part-time and go investigate.
Correct, yeah, and I think there's, Tom might be able to opine, but I think there's something in the code about it has to be visible by the naked eye. So, binoculars, things like that,
Right.
that they require an extraordinary effort to see it. That would not count, but if we can plainly see there's a junk car there, then we can enforce that.
How long can that car or vehicle sit there inoperable? Before
That's defined in the state code. I believe it's
60?
60 days.
60 days?
Yeah.
Does this apply to commercial property at all?
It's, that limit would not. Now, we have a definition elsewhere in the ordinance for junkyard, salvage yard, scrap yard, things like that, that would govern whether somebody can do that. We also have some additional use standards for, I think, like auto body repair shop, things like that, that set limits on what they can or cannot do. So we haven't had any issues with that at all that I'm aware of. So this wouldn't intend to address that. But there's other mechanisms in the ordinance to keep those, in some kind of standard.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. No one else, Mr. Williams, would you care to make the motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I recommend approval of ordinance O-2020-17,
Anybody want
2021.
2021.
Anyone want a second?
Second?
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Barry,
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly,
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Brett, you're back with us. We have Resolution R 2021-33 approving the secondary system construction budget priority list for fiscal year 22 and the secondary 6-year road plan for fiscal year 22 to 27. Mr.
Yeah.
Chardon.
Yeah, I was looking, we don't have anybody with VDOT here with us tonight, but this one essentially is what we did last year. Just carrying funds forward in the 6-year plan, not proposing any new projects. As you know, we have the new CVTA funds and we need to develop a plan for how to use those and what projects we want to do. So that'll be integral with this. So until we develop that list, we're not proposing to add anything new, just again, carry the funds forward, build them up, and then probably next year, I imagine we'll have a more substantial 6-year plan, including some real projects.
If, very quickly, if something does pop up that costs a lesser amount of money, we could still allocate some of these funds from that. That wouldn't be a problem, correct?
Yeah, we could, I believe we'd have to amend this at that time to put the project on there, but I
Okay.
think that's always an option.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions?
I would just like to bring everybody's attention to the amounts that are shown by fiscal year and point out how these amounts have been reduced over time. For example, if you look over the 6-year period, what we're getting $527,700 some dollars. That's nothing. So the monies that we're going to be getting through the Central Virginia Transportation Authority are going to be a big help.
Huge.
Because with those new taxes that were implemented in conjunction with the creation of the authority, we get 50% of that new sales tax and the new taxes on gas and diesel. The other 50% goes down to the authority, of which 15% gets carved off of GRTC. But again, we're estimating that we'll be getting the first year, I believe, was it $1.3 million from the authority. So that's going to be helpful to us in Powhatan County because 6-year funds don't hardly get you a driveway anymore. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We don't have a public hearing on this.
We do.
We do,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay,
Um,
we'll now have a public hearing on this resolution. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Anyone on Zoom?
Zoom is clear, ma'am.
All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. I move we approve resolution R-2021-33. Do I have a second?
Second.
All righty, any questions or comments? If not, we'll do a roll call.
Mr. Williams.
All right.
Mr. Barry.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye.
Our final public hearing tonight, Madam Chair, is Resolution R 2021-32, which is amending the fiscal year 21 budget to reflect received CVTA funds, and we've received it to date, and also to amend the budget to reflect the addition of the American Rescue Fund. Ms. Charlotte Carmack, the Director of Finance, is here tonight to present this resolution.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, the resolution you have before you is, as he said, to appropriate the funds that we've received so far from the CVTA fund, which Mr. Williams stole my thunder, part of my speech, explaining what those funds are. But I think you did a better job than I probably would have. So far, the amount in the resolution is $1,082,256, which is collections through March, because it's 2 months delay, just like our local sales tax. It has to go through the authority and then it comes to us. So I will be bringing back to you the last 3 months of the year to clean up for the year, for this year, for what we've collected so far in 21 received. The other part of the resolution is for the new American Rescue Plan Act money. The county was awarded over a 2-year period, $5,759,553. And so this resolution is going ahead and adopting that. We're required to have a public hearing because it does meet over 1% of our budget. So therefore, we have to have a public hearing to amend the budget.
Okay, before we have discussion, let's have a public hearing on this. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Zoom is clear, ma'am.
All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. And now we can have some discussion on this resolution.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
page 84, which of the resolution says that we want to take 2 kinds of funds in and accept them in the county. But then it starts talking about expenditures.
Correct.
Why?
Because if you appropriate revenue, you need to appropriate expenditures to have a balanced budget.
We carry a general fund balance of some significance without expenditures matched against it.
Actually, what would happen if we didn't appropriate these funds at this time? I actually, for the annual financial report, when we received this number of funds, I'm required to show a budget in the annual report for these large dollars. If you didn't appropriate them, when you did use them, you would have to still appropriate. You'd be appropriating your fund balance, not your revenue, because once it rolls over to the next year, it's not revenue to us anymore. It's existing fund balance. So
Mr. Cox, we will make sure that the fact that it's appropriated does not mean any project have been chosen at all
No.
for spending. It's just the fact it's there when you move forward.
With the ARPA funds, why do we have it in 2 different areas?
Good question. We appropriated 800,000 of it during the fiscal year 22 budget. And we used 500,000 of that to supplant our broadband budget, and we used 300,000 for utilities projects. The 800,000 was offered the 5,000,007 award.
correct.
Ended up with this the leftover amount that you're seeing here.
Wait a minute. We haven't allocated any of this. We're just getting it. It's just coming to us.
Yeah, but we did include in our budget, we basically estimated that we would use 800,000 of CIP money in our next year's CIP.
We haven't had a discussion on what we're going to do with the ARPA money.
Right.
Okay. I'd like to see it in whatever vessel you want to put it in.
I
Okay.
do agree.
As a lump sum, and then have a discussion on where the board wants it to go. We haven't had that discussion. There's a lot of money.
I don't mean to interrupt. We can amend this resolution to just put it all into the one line like we did with the CARES Act funding, where it's just ARPA expenses. And then before you have your discussion of where you want to allocate those funds. It does have stipulations around it, just like the CARES Act money did. We've finished with that to where you can only use it for specific things. So it's not, so
No,
broadband and water sewer were 2 of the areas that are allowed for that money. So, but I can amend this resolution to move it back up to 1 pot of money if that's what the board's wish is.
I would be more comfortable with that.
Are you all fine moving it, Mr. Byerly?
it's fine with me. It doesn't matter one way or another. The money's there.
Mr. Barry?
as far as I'm
Okay.
concerned.
We can put it in one pot. Would you care anything else?
Nope.
Would you care to make a motion?
Make a motion that we approve resolution R-2021-32 as amended.
All right. Any questions or comments?
Do we need specificity on the amendment again?
The amendment is the ARPA expenses will be in one account, not in two accounts.
Congrats.
All right, and the grants fund. Okay.
All right, roll call, sir.
Mr. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Barry.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly,
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye. All righty, moving on. We are at the second public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes as an individual, 5 minutes if you're speaking for a group.
Curtis Newton, 2000 Dewsbury Road. He's back. I promise I'll get you out of here before last Tuesday's time. I saw this, the extra, well, it was 6.8 million, I think, when it first came out in the papers. I guess it's been reduced to tonight it says like 6 million that y'all, extra money that y'all receiving from the CARES Act or whatever, and from the transportation. The transportation money, I was really surprised at the amount coming from the gas tax. And if it's mostly for transportation, $1 million is not a lot of money, but it certainly helps. I heard rumors of a Wawa coming out here, and I would encourage y'all to approve any gas stations to come up for vote if we can get more tax money from that. But I saw the 6.8 million, and my first thought, well, maybe I was very petty in complaining about only 700,000 back in the April, May meetings. And but I said, well, I wouldn't say much tonight other than to say to listen to what y'all were planning and see what was going to go forward. And I may in the future just decide to stay away from these and just voice my opinion during the election cycles and be better mentally off just being in the dark on these items. I've encouraged others to attend budget meetings, and well, you can see how well that's worked out. I wish we could get more people out here, and a lot of people are involved, the school people, a lot of people early in the thing. And I think I've learned from the last couple of years that there's not a lot you can get done showing up in February, March, and April. You need to be in this process early, like you all are. And so I'm just gonna see how this works out and see what y'all do with this money. I'm not sure what the AAAP, the fund y'all are putting it in, I'm not sure how that works, but I'll just see how that works. My wife's gonna be thrilled that she would love to see less inoperable cars sitting around in the county. As for the parking lot, I will say I'm through the village walking many times, 3 or 4 times a week. If it's a parking lot I'm thinking about, it's mostly 4 to 6 cars there. I've never seen 32, and much less, most of the time, much less than that. As far as the restaurant people, or their customers, all I could say was they're getting a free use within the county parking lot. So if they have parking in the gravel, that's just they'll just have to deal with it. But if y'all want to pave it, that's not a big deal. But I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all are going to do with this money and how it's going to be spent. And I'm sure y'all do wisely.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone on Zoom?
Zoom is clear, Madam Chair.
All right, seeing no one else, I will close the second public comment period. County attorney comments,
No comments.
county administrator comments,
No comments.
board comments. Any board comments? Okay. Moving on, we will go into our closed meeting.
All right.
Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following matter. Discussion, consideration, interviewing prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the public body concerning the county administrator. And whereas pursuant to section 2.2, 3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Powhatan County does hereby authorize discussion of the aforestated matter in closed meeting. Need that as a motion.
So moved. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, moving on.
Members of the board were the only matters discussed in the closed session, public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and only such matters as were disclosed in the motion by which the closed session was convened or heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session need a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Barry.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
Mr. Byerly.
Aye.
Ms. Carmack.
Aye. And if nothing else, meeting adjourned.